Welcome, critters. I'm Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine a critical role episodes, plot lines, and characters through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 42,
Yep.
Part 2. And joining me today is Atlas.
Hello.
So, the icebreaker I have today is what song do you have on repeat lately?
Um so the it's called the Dancing in the Dreaming from How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Oh,
Um because one, I love the entire How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack.
yeah.
It's one of the best things ever made. But also because I rewatched all of the movies recently, and every time I do, I become obsessed with that song. So it's actually literally on repeat on my phone right now.
I've never looked up specifically the soundtrack of How to Train a Dragon, but I will now add it to my to-do list.
It is my go-to for anytime I want to listen to instrumentals of any kind. It's like the top. That and Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron.
Okay. I mean, I'm always looking for instrumental playlists because of writing. I always have to have
Hmm.
instrumental music playing in the background when I'm writing, so I will definitely look them up.
Yeah. I honestly, that is bar none some of my favorite music ever
Hmm.
is the How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack.
Hmm. I mean, my top movie soundtrack of all time is Empire Records, I would have to say.
That one's also good.
But there are a lot of lyrics, so it's not like, instrumental background music. But I will definitely look up those two that you suggested.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been I don't know if this is embarrassing to admit or not, but I'm going to do it. Lately I've been on a manifestation affirmation kick, but like set to rap beats and hip hop beats instead of like the normal
Okay.
meditation kind of vibe that you get when you look up that kind of stuff. And it's a beautiful cross-genre melding of the two that like instantly activates your bad bitch.
Hey, it's got to add to the motivation side of things.
It's so first I got on this kick by an artist called Abel Hart. He's pretty popular on TikTok right now, and he does these videos where like his hair bounces to the beat of whatever he's rapping.
Okay.
You have to look it up, it's great. He led me down the pipeline of finding a woman named Peachka is the name that she goes by. And all of her songs are like manifestation, affirmation, repetition type of stuff, but she raps really well. The beats are really good. And so there's this one song called Protection that I am absolutely obsessed with at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically like, I don't fuck with bad vibes.
We could all use that kind of affirmation right now.
It's exactly. It's like the main chorus is I don't fuck with bad vibes. I'm not scared to cut ties. And I'm like, yeah, bitch.
Great thing to keep in mind these days.
Yes, yes. And I am protected from my head to my toes. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Yeah, so I've been definitely on a rap affirmation kick lately. And it's surprising how much the genre has grown. Like, first off, who knew that that was even a genre?
Right.
Second off, who knew that so many people were releasing that genre?
Would never have guessed.
There's one song that just says, I am the money. And that's like literally all they say throughout the entire song is, I am the money. But it's
All right.
honestly surprisingly good because it's like backed up by beats and it has like, it's great.
Nice.
Hmm.
Well, sounds like that's working out for you.
I mean, when you are angrily driving to work every day,
Hmm.
kind of takes care of the anger.
Fair enough.
But I am officially off work, so maybe I will transition my music to instrumental background soundtracks.
You know, we all go through different phases,
Yes.
especially when we get on vacation and decide to do something totally different.
Yeah. I walked 3 miles the other day because I had to drop off my rental car at the rental car agency, and it's 3 miles away from my house. And so I was like, you
Mm.
know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to walk the 3 miles and see what happens. And I listened to our local, like, people run radio station KEXP in the Seattle area, and it was delightful.
Yeah. I've been enjoying my little How to Train Your Dragon soundtrack obsession during my daily walks because it makes me feel like I'm on an adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. If we can romanticize more aspects of our day-to-day lives, I think we will all be better off in general.
Yeah, I like that theory.
Hmm. Well, please join us as we embark on this romanticizing adventure in story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well, so please comment, like, subscribe below, and ready? All right, let's dive in. As we open this podcast episode, take it away.
Okay. We return to the aftermath of the Wyvern fight as the party gathers themselves and continues to make their way to the clasp entrance that Garthok pointed them towards. They head into the cellar where they find a hidden ladder that leads farther down. The majority of the party opts to take a short rest to recover a bit from their recent fight. However, Grog and Vax choose to abstain from the rest and busy themselves elsewhere. Vax continues the Vax uses the time to scoot down the ladder and scout the upcoming tunnels. With the light of the flame-tongued dagger, he finds himself in the sewer system beneath Amon. In the distance, down the tunnel, he sees a light in one direction and hears running water down the other. He chooses to continue keeping watch at the base of the ladder while the party rests and eventually calls Vex down to join him for a conversation. He takes the opportunity to tell Vex how he became involved in the clasp in the first place. The clasp had been intending to grab Vex for one of their clients, and Vax had intervened to keep her safe by exchanging her life for someone else's. That person was transformed by a magical artifact to appear like Vex, and the clasps used them to fulfill their bargain. Vax was branded by and indebted to the clasp. Since he still doesn't know exactly what the clasp wanted with Vex or who hired them, or how far reaching the contract was, he asked Vex to stay as quiet and uninvolved as possible in whatever conversations come next. Vex is understandably shaken and has a lot of questions, most of which Vax can't answer, but she is ultimately grateful for what her brother did for her and agrees to stay towards the back of the group. At this point, the group finishes their rest and they all join the twins in the sewers. Vex asks Scanlan if he has some kind of disguise she could use, and they talk about the Hat of Disguise, which would require attunement, or Seeming, which would work instantly but is a high level spell. When they opt for Seeming, Scanlan balks at the idea because of the spell level and instead minor illusions a mustache for Vex, who is unamused, and offers a teasing limerick to Scanlan in payment. He admits that it was a good limerick and hands over the Hat of Disguise instead. They take the time to allow Vex to attune to the hat and otherwise finish preparing. Then the party heads in the direction of the light, which is confirmed to be the correct direction by some thieves' cant on the wall. At the end, they find a ramshackle tent city lit by intermittent bonfires. Vax starts to introduce himself when Garthok shows up and diffuses some of the immediate tension with the class. Before they can say much, another figure arrives who clearly holds some authority over the class. He recognizes the party of as Vox Machina and introduces himself as Spiraling Shen, Master of Networks and Information of the class of Amon, which is entirely too many ofs in a row. Vax takes the lead in their conversation, emphasizing that neither party wants the dragons to remain in the city and acknowledging that the clasp is still a functional organization that has the network to help those in need, calling it the closest thing that currently exists to a government. The spiraling lays out the class's plan to take care of their own, call in some favors, and look for a way to supplant Thordak. Percy points out that the city will need a black market moving forward, and the spiraling agrees, saying it is part of their plans, but not elaborating further than that. Percy argues that the class is or will be in a position to keep the people of Amon supplied with food and medicine, as well as to act as spies and information gatherers for those working against the dragons. The offer is that Vox Machina will stay out of the clasp's way. The spiraling is unimpressed by the offer. Percy then offers the safe haven of their keep and emphasizes their connections to Whitestone, Vasselheim, and the Slayer's Take. Vax emphasizes that this would be a short-term partnership directly related to the downfall of the dragons. The spiraling latches onto the idea of connections in Vasselheim. The party backpedals a bit, playing up that there is no guarantee and questioning the clasp's goals for a post-dragon Amon and their presence in Vasselheim. The spiraling brushes off the concerns, saying that the real power already lies in the underbelly and they already have that. He proposes another deal. They will use their networks to keep the people of Amon fed, healthy, and sheltered, and in exchange, Vox Machina will use their connections to the people in power to establish the class position post-Dragon, namely in Vasselheim, where they have been unable to establish a foothold by themselves. Keyleth, especially, is disturbed by this proposition and asks for a moment to discuss it further. Keyleth and Grog are pretty set against this idea, while Percy seems more inclined to continue negotiations or to even accept the Spiraling's proposal. He firmly believes that organizations like the Clasp are necessary and inevitable. Keyleth expresses that she has no qualms about working with them, but that helping them expand into new territory, especially territory like Vasselheim, is a step too far. The Spiraling is keeping an eye on the conversation and reading their lips. Percy returns to the negotiations and counters the Spiraling's last offer. Instead of Vesselheim, he offers materials from Whitestone and non-interference until a new city government has been established. The Spiraling points out that this is basically their status quo already, and doubles down on an introduction to Vasselheim. Percy still seems inclined to take the deal, but the rest of the party hesitates. The Spiraling begins to list past interactions between Vox Machina and the Clasp, where the Clasp had been generous or lenient in their usual rules. The party is clearly divided on whether they should take the deal, and the Spiraling is quickly losing his patience. Ultimately, the choice comes down to Vax, who rejects the deal outright. The Spiraling is not happy and declares Vax a false member of the Clasp and all of Vox Machina persona non grata. Grog is inclined to fight the Clasp, but Vox Machina manages to talk him out of it and leaves with a few parting words. Vax asks them to think of the people of Amon, and Keyleth asks them to think of the greater enemy. They find their way back to the surface and hear the entrance being destroyed behind them, so they cannot return. Percy turns his frustrations on Keyleth and accuses her of allowing her ego and noble intentions to get in the way of what needed to be done, at least according to him. Vex worries that Vax's class mark could be used to track him in some way, and Vax asks Keyleth to burn it off, which she does. In the end, it seems most of the party agrees with walking away from the class was the right move, though Percy is a very vocal minority. The party begins to stealth back to their keep. Keyleth rolls a natural 1, but Percy hides her with an illusion shadow. They return to the keep safely, where Gilmore and other refugees have been recovering. The party rests for the night, and Vax finds his way to Keyleth's room so that he doesn't have to spend the night alone. Vex returns Scanlan's hat of disguise, and the party takes the remaining refugees and their staff to Whitestone for safety. They lament that the keep is unlikely to be standing by the time they return to Amon, and Vex especially mourns the loss of the place she considers home. They leave several notes for people who might come looking for them and evacuate the keep. The party passes a day in Whitestone, and they try and fail to track down some additional healing supplies, but they do receive some monetary help from the Whitestone Treasury via Cass. Percy borrows money back from Vex for one of his projects and jokes that she's practically the royal treasurer. The party travels to Vasselheim and makes their way to the Slayer's Take, where they have rooms available to them. They settle into their rooms, and we end the episode as they make plans for what to do in the days to come.
Wow. I've forgotten so many aspects of I literally had
So
to
much
take
happened in
notes.
this last like hour.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, like, first off, the limerick was just genius. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was so good.
So good. So good. Um, but I think the most interesting aspect for me from this second half is the group trying to make a decision when it comes
Mm.
to the clasps offer and each individual character's position on.
Yeah, there's definitely some that didn't fall on the side of the argument that I thought they would.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, I think I align more with Percy's point of view, but I understand where the others are coming from.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I was super fascinated with the um comparison we see between Keyleth and Percy.
Hmm.
Because really they're in basically the same position with just different mindsets about it. You know, they're both early 20 somethings who are working their way towards a position of power that they never expected to hold. They just have very different backgrounds coming at it.
Hmm.
And it's like that's part of why their friendship is so fascinating to me, is they are in so many ways mirrors of each other.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite lines was from Percy when he's saying that to be a good leader means to sacrifice yourself.
Hmm.
And I think what he meant is like the ego that he's accusing Keyleth of having in her righteousness of opinion that she has for what she's doing. But I think Keyleth also is standing on this belief that Percy is also being egotistic in his
Yeah.
motivations.
They both have ego issues with this. It's just the different side of ego. Um, and at one point, when they're kind of out of the class, Percy has this line where it's like, one day you'll stop being afraid of me, and I hope it's soon, or something like that. And the thing is, nobody was afraid of him. They just are coming at this from a very different perspective, and they're coming at it with their own biases. And
Hmm.
that's one of the hugest biases that he's bringing, is that he thinks everybody is scared of him because of the whole Briarwood arc and everything that's happened up till now. He's convinced that he has to prove himself.
Hmm.
And so is Keyleth, but they're going about it in very different ways, and they just are, they're like ships passing. They just don't quite see each other in the same way, even though they're struggling with the same exact thing.
I mean, they even say it explicitly during the negotiation. It's like, Percy, you're used to dealing with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you're considering dealing with the clasp in this scenario draws the parallel of the clasp being devilish.
Yeah. And like they both need to find their way to a middle ground. Like Keyleth is very strict in her idea of right and wrong. It's very black and white right now. And Percy hasn't quite realized that you don't have to always land on the side of charcoal gray.
Mm,
Like there is some place for a moral stance and for things that are less convenient but more not performative, but like are going to show people what you think is
mm,
correct or what you think is important.
mm,
Um, and to be fair, in this exact situation, I don't think either of them were correct. I
mm,
think they like whatever happened in this conversation, it was going to come back to bite them in one way or another. It's just a question of how.
Yeah.
Um, but like they both needed to find a middle ground. That would have been like that's the lesson they need to take away from this.
It's interesting because I keep thinking about their attempts at leadership in terms of parenting styles.
Okay.
I don't know what, well, I mean, I think my brain is drawing that connection because I just got done with a school year and dealing with a lot of children who had very different parenting styles at home. Um,
Right.
and one of the most fascinating things that I find working with children is seeing the parallels and the impact of their parents' parenting style on the
Mm,
child and how the child interacts with the world around them. Um, and over the years, I've very much seen Keyleth's attempt at leading slash parenting as I think there was a term that I saw once called benevolent authoritarianism,
okay.
where like she's the sole decider of things, the sole moral compass of things, and but she's
Hmm.
doing it for the good of whoever's she's deciding this for. Where I feel like Percy lands on the spectrum of very laissez-faire, hands off of how the people he's making decisions for are impacted by the decisions that he's making for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think they're both rather authoritarian in their approach, but they care about different things when it comes to that. You say that I think you hit Keyleth nail like hit the nail on the head there. Like she is the decider, but she's doing it for the good of her people. Or like, yeah. But Percy is also in a like he thinks he's doing it for the good of his people, but his idea of what they need is just different than what Keyleth is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what Percy is advocating for basically is a universal basic income.
Yeah, can't argue with that. That would be nice.
Yeah. And, I think his logic is that whatever comes of the deal will be able to navigate,
Yeah.
or they'll be able to navigate. Whereas I feel like Keyleth is trying to make decisions with all possible consequences already sorted.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's kind of a fundamental piece of Keyleth's character at this point in her arc. She's gotten to the point where she can make decisions, but they have to be clearly the right decision. And this one is just not cut and dry the way that she needs it to be.
Yeah.
Um, but I also like Keyleth is interesting in the way that she's thinking about this, in that she doesn't want to inflict a moral choice on other people. So, like, she doesn't want to inflict an association with a criminal organization on people she doesn't already know. She's okay with Vox Machina making that decision. It's an informed decision for them, but she's not willing to inflict that decision on the rest of Iman, which is a really interesting stance to take. Like, she's trying to do right by people, but only in a way that absolves them of later consequences, including any criminal association of any kind, which is that is a lot. And you're not going to find a perfect solution in the middle of a dragon attack. But it's interesting to look at it and recognize that, she's making her decision because she's not willing to make a decision that could be in any way controversial later on. It's not just could be harmful, it's not just could be, it's she is not willing to put herself in a position where she could be wrong.
And it's in essence vilifying the clasp.
Yeah.
and vilifying any intentions that the clasp has, whether they are morally good or morally bad. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what their intention is with creating a underground system in Vasselheim. We don't know what their overall moral code is in the clasp.
Yeah. And I think part of why that's such a struggle, especially for Keyleth, is because she's getting it from Vax.
Yeah.
And Vax is, as much as he's associated with the clasp, he is not associated because he wants to be. It was very similar to some episodes that are coming up. It's a sacrifice that he chose to make, but then hasn't really come to terms with ever.
Well, he's painted them as a threat because they were a threat to his sister.
Exactly.
And that's a very broad generalization on the clasp as a whole to think that just these particular power players in Westrun that are part of the clasp
Hmm.
ecosystem were momentarily a threat to his sister. Ergo, all class members across the world are a threat to Vox Machina and the world at large.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a interesting sweeping generalization that
And Keyleth just picked it up without questioning.
yeah,
She was like, "Oh, threat, bet."
yeah. And like even Vex doesn't quite take that stance.
Yeah,
Like she's not totally against this idea.
yeah,
Even at the end when they're kind of talking through sides, she's one of the ones that kind of lands more towards Percy's point of view. Like she doesn't think it was wrong to turn them down, but that it might not have been the best idea. Um, and like she doesn't see a threat to her life in the same overarching way that Vax does.
yeah.
Vax takes it and runs with it and paints a very wide brush with this one incident, however many years ago, that he still hasn't really processed and dealt with.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just goes to show you that I land more on the morally gray side of the spectrum
Yeah, that's fair.
personally. Well, because I think it also very much highlights a complexity in the governance of civilization.
Mhm.
Because, for me, the most logical route to reduce the amount of uncertainty in this decision-making process is to bring in people from Vasselheim to make the decision with them, to bring in a member voting contingent from the people of Amon to also have a say in this decision instead of making these broad sweeping decisions for the masses based on these few individuals' moral
Yeah.
compasses and biases. You know, for me, the logical step would be bringing in representatives from the groups that are going to be impacted by this decision. Um,
Yeah. And short of that, because they're on kind of a time crunch, um, you know, making this decision that allows for more choice down the road.
yeah,
Which for me means following Percy in this case of
yeah,
like they're not asking for a guaranteed foothold in Vasselheim. They're asking for introductions.
introductions. Yeah.
And then people can make their own choices about where to go from
Yeah,
there.
like have the class leader go talk to the Sphinx. Sure, whatever. The Sphinx just might eat him.
Right? Like there's no guarantee they're going to succeed. There's no guarantee they'll even get past that conversation.
Yeah,
It would have been taking care of people in the moment and allowing people a choice later.
yeah.
And to me, that's the better option. But I
It,
can also see how, in the heat of the moment, moral compasses will rule, and some people aren't going to get that far into what the impact of this choice actually is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's resource management on a much larger scale than what they're used to
Yeah.
at this point in time. I mean, we've been talking about this over the course of this podcast, is this gradual evolution that we're seeing of Vox Machina going from solo adventurers
Hmm.
to speakers of state.
Like on the actual Council of Taldore.
And not only influencing the continent of Taldore, but also having influential ties in other continents across the world.
Yeah.
Their influence is gradually becoming global at this point. And it's understandable that they're going to make some untenable decisions or maybe not well thought through
Yeah,
decisions as they progress.
for sure. And I think this is one of the early ones where we kind of see them fight a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Um, and they'll get better about this as they go on, where they'll kind of learn to have that discussion beforehand and go into a conversation knowing where the group is at instead of winging it in important
I
negotiations.
mean, I'm thinking about a particular campaign to set up.
Okay, in this campaign, in Vox Machina specifically,
Uh,
um, Vox Machina will come together a little bit better. Uh, campaign two is a whole different story. Uh, but like, there was no reason for Percy to jump on Keyleth
yeah.
at
I mean,
like on
yeah.
the way out. Um, they made decisions that they didn't agree with, right? And that's fine. But it was not full. It really wasn't even solely Keyleth's decision. It She wasn't the final call maker. There was no reason to call her out specifically. Um, and like as much as I disagree with Keyleth in this instance, I also didn't love that Percy's response was to jump on the person who most vocally disagreed with him. You know, that's not a great way to handle the aftermath of negotiations when, you're a team. Um, so I guess where I'm going with that is mostly it doesn't matter who we agree with. It also matters how we respond in the aftermath. And I think they made as many mistakes there as they did in the actual negotiations.
Yeah. I mean, we're even thinking about the whole Vax and Keela thing too, near
Yeah.
at the end is like they are forming an alliance.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
sub alliance to, the group as a whole.
We kind of see a couple of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We see Percy and Vex kind of
yeah,
pair off too,
yeah,
and Keyleth and Vax, and then we have Grog and Scanlan, who traditionally will continue to float kind of between these two factions for the rest of the campaign.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. And like you said at the beginning, it's all based on bias.
Yeah, they are bringing their own biases to this conversation so heavily that
Mhm.
it's hard to separate their biases from any of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, are any personal experiences coming to mind here?
Um, no. I have nothing. My brain is empty.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny dealing with the whole kids situation and working within a school district. And I've kind of come around to, I guess, my preferred mode of parenting based on what I've seen
Mm.
over the last year and a half going on. And I see that reflected too in how like me and my coworkers also treat the kids that we're working with. And I'm definitely on the laissez-faire spectrum.
Yeah.
Um, like my stance is as long as they're not hurting themselves or hurting anyone else, it's pretty fine. Whatever they want to do with themselves. I had this 6-year-old who was carrying around a stick and doing like drum beats on everything.
As
And
6-year-olds do.
yeah, and so like there were a couple staff members who were trying to get her to stop. And she was getting very upset at their attempts to get her to stop. And I was like, it's fine if she has the stick. Like, I don't she has the fucking stick. As long as she's not hurting herself or hurting anyone else with said stick, she can have the stick.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm kind of, in terms of making decisions, I'm also part of the group of like, I trust them to be able to handle the consequences to the decisions that they
Yeah.
decide for themselves. I'm not here to be like, well, this is the right decision in this scenario, unless it has to do with like safety. Like I will make the safety decision. That's my role as the adult in this situation. But
Right.
if this has to do with your friends, if it has to deal with your family, if it has to deal with food, if it has to deal with sticks, I trust that you will be able to, and even if it doesn't work out in your perceived favor, I trust that you will be able to deal with the feelings that come along of it not going according to your favor too. Like, if you just want to spend half an hour crying, go for it.
That's fair.
Like, I'm not gonna police your emotional response to the stick being taken away from you.
Yeah. I think that actually carries over well into um, fandom in general.
Mm,
Given this podcast, it's very obvious we both engage in fandom spaces
yeah.
in, you know, pretty regular ways. Um, but there's so much, especially around a show like Critical Role, that has huge amounts of improvised content. There's so much potential for fandom drama
Yeah.
and fandom, contention, and there's whole factions. Like if you have interacted with the Critical Role fandom online at all, you're not very far from some kind of drama and some kind of faction that will not speak to whoever's on the other side of the aisle from whatever their, you know,
Yeah.
perceived idea of this story is. And so part of what's I'm thinking of is just like this whole conversation is a microcosm that just kind of embodies that. It's like people will have different opinions than you. People will have different interpretations. People will come in with different biases or experiences or understandings, and that's okay. We're gonna have to coexist in some way, shape, or form, and the easiest way to do that is not by tearing down people who have different opinions than you do.
Yeah. 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 I don't know if I've talked about it on this podcast, but I recently went viral on the wrong side of TikTok
Mm,
and got a lot of angry comments. And I honestly had to take a step back and be like, all right, I'm not going to respond to their anger with anger, like, especially when a
yeah,
lot of their tactics are reductionist and assumptive
yeah,
and goading.
for sure.
And it tends to revolve around my physical appearance, my financial status,
Yep.
and I'm just like, I can see a past version of Claire responding to that very much so, but the present version of Claire is just like, what are you even doing? Like,
Yeah,
you think this works?
for sure. And I mean that's part of growing and learning to exist in
Public.
communal spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to let it go for your own
Um,
sake, for
yeah.
nobody else's.
Yeah. Well, what are we being called to do as a result?
I think the big thing for me that came out of this was to and this has come up before, but was to examine my biases
Mm, yeah.
going into important conversations. Like going in knowing where your own hangups are going to be and where your um, unintentional trigger points are going to be is going to help the conversation go a lot smoother. And so it's been a little while since we talked about biases on this podcast. It's come up before, but it's been a little while. So here's your annual reminder: examine your own biases, and take the time to do it on a regular basis. You can't do it once and call it good. So this is my opportunity to re-examine my own biases and see how they are affecting the way I interact with the people around me and the decisions I make.
Hell yeah. Period. Queen. Like I have nothing to add to that because that is on point. Um, I think another facet to this conversation that I do want to underline as well is this to continue on this self-awareness
Mm,
thread that you're on is, biases and triggers.
yeah.
Because I think so many people are unaware of their triggers.
And trigger is such a overused term.
Sure, yeah.
Um, and so a lot of people will not recognize triggers because they don't want to engage with that space, and they don't understand that it does come from a very legitimate thing that we need to look at, and it's not just internet terminology.
Yeah.
Like, it is real and something that you need to be aware of.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly hard to write emotional drama as someone who is hella aware of triggers. Because, like, I mean, even using the example of Vex having this small meltdown over losing the keep, like, if
Yeah.
Vex had been in a self-aware enough space, she would have been able to recognize why she was having that emotional response and be able to address that emotional response more so than act on the emotional response. But that doesn't make for good for stories for emotional trauma sometimes.
Right. And sometimes it's good in life to just live. But when
Yes,
you're going into important
yes,
conversations, be aware of yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and no one's perfect either. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get to a completely unbiased state.
I
And
don't
I
think it's
don't think
possible.
we're ever going to be able to get to an untriggerable state either.
No. It's not about avoiding them. As my therapist would say, avoidance is not the answer um, to anything. But it is about being aware about how that's going to affect your ability to have a conversation or to make a decision, or what you might need to change in terms of your decision making process because of the things that are going to come up.
I mean, can you think about how much that conversation with the clasp would have been different if Vox Machina had had a short, super short conversation previously about like what their even goal was with going to the
Yeah.
clasp? Because I think many of the people within the group didn't even know why they were talking to the clasp in the first place.
No. And the people who did know had a very strict idea of what they wanted.
Yeah,
But even that didn't agree with each other.
yeah,
Like, if they had taken 5 minutes to get on the same page as each other and to recognize what parts of this conversation could be problematic for their group, they could have ended up with a very different, much more productive result.
yeah. I mean, it's on par with their whole panic response that they've been having so far with the dragon
Oh,
attack.
yeah, it makes sense in terms of the story, for sure.
Yeah, and they've just kind of been stumbling from one potential solution to one potential solution after another.
Yeah.
And they're now at the point where another potential solution has supposedly failed. And so now I think a lot of them may be feeling like they're back at square one.
Yeah. And they're in a slightly different position than they were at square one. But
I mean,
it
I
can't
would agree with that, but I don't know if they're
but
feeling
it can't
that.
feel that way. Like it's gotta feel so sucky to go through all of this work and then not end up with what you thought you were going to get out of it.
What's the phrase? 10,000 versions of a light bulb?
Yeah, something like that.
Hmm. Well, anything else we want to add before we start wrapping up?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we're getting into some juicy territory here.
We're getting into some fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Even though the Chroma Conclave arc is way too long, there are some great moments.
There are some really great moments, and we're getting into the pieces where it's before it's dragged on too long,
Yeah,
and we're not quite at the point where it's at a, epic conclusion. We're in the beginning where it's still ramping up and still fun. We'll
yeah,
get to the drag later.
yeah, yeah. I first started watching Critical Role live during the Voracle fight.
That's a heck of a time to start.
Well, my boyfriend was watching it, and I would come inside and be like, "Oh, okay," and then go back to do my own thing. But then the Voro fight, I like kept coming back in for like more periods of watching it, and then finally I just sat down on the couch and I'm like, "What's going on here? Who's that? Who's that?"
Love that.
I was like, if that's any indication of how great the Voracle fight goes,
I do love the Vorgel fight. It's pretty great.
it's a great episode in general. Before the fight, during the fight, after the fight, great stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But we'll get there in about a year and a half.
So far to go.
Oh, well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. And audience, I know this kind of feels like therapy sometimes, but we are being self-aware and
It's a skill set.
how these stories impact us and how we reflect back on them and how they shape our worldview. And I'm sure Critical Role has also done that to you at some time in some shape or form. So please share your own insights and stories with us as well. We'd love to know how this wonderful fandom has impacted you in your own lives. Special thanks to Alice for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Always happy to be here.
So next time we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 43, Part 1, and joining me will be Petal. So I'm excited for that. As always, I'm looking for co-hosts and guests so if you're interested in coming on and nerding out with me, please join me. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR for all the juicy updates. And until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, guys.
Bye.